So as you know, Tears of the Kingdom came out about a month ago, and at this point, a lot of people are still asking the question, is it worth it? This game is $70. Should I go out and actually buy this game, or do I need to wait, see what the reviews are like, see what people are really saying? Well, today you're going to find out all of that in a completely no spoiler review of Tears of the Kingdom. I'm going to show a bunch of trailer footage, so if you haven't watched the trailers, that stuff is going to be in it, but other than that, you're pretty much safe and good to go. So let's get into it. So first of all, Tears of the Kingdom is really just revolutionary in terms of game design. Somehow the Zelda team crafted a masterpiece that is fully interactive with everything in the world, and I mean everything. So let's discuss the various abilities that you get early in the game. These abilities were shown off by Miyamoto in the gameplay presentation about a week or so before the game came out, so I'm going to say they're fair game. So instead of those Sheikah abilities from Breath of the Wild like Magnesis, Cryosis, Stasis, Remote Bombs, basically, you can do anything with one ability in this game. You want Magnesis? You want to be able to move objects? Puh. We'll say no more, because now we have Ultra Hand, which allows you to do exactly that. You can move anything, you can put pieces together, and let me just really get into that. Basically, with Ultra Hand, we have the ability to create literally anything. People have made some absolutely wild things with Ultra Hand. Which, like I said earlier, is basically an all-powerful magnesis, where the items you move don't have to be metal and you can join them together, and you can make whatever your heart desires, from full-on trucks to simple boats, and even Korok torture devices. The next ability we have is called Fuse. This allows you to, you guessed it, fuse things together, specifically weapons. So I can have a normal stick and then I can fuse it with a rock, and that makes that stick extremely powerful. I can also fuse things to my shield for a myriad of different effects, not including rocketing myself up to places, but I can also use fuse with the arrows to make things like a bomb, ice or fire arrows. So there's no need to go buy those expensive ass arrows, because now you can just use the basic ones for everything. Rewind is essentially like it sounds. You can rewind different objects, and for example, this could be an enemy might throw a spiky ball at you. Well, and all you need to do is recall it and send it right back to them, killing them in the way. Or maybe you need to cross a river or get to a sky island, and by using Rewind, you can do exactly that. Rewind is the one that I think has the most immense potential. Like this video where someone used recall to defeat a Hinox, as Link just watches like an absolute sicko. Lastly is Ascend, which allows you to ascend through ceilings, and this is also an amazing ability in the game. There was this thing in the beginning where a lot of people thought Ascend would just ruin the game and make puzzles too easy because you could just ascend right through them. However, the developers definitely had this in mind while making the world and made it so there's not really a way to abuse the system, and oftentimes if you find an overhanging ledge or something and ascend through it, there's purpose behind it. You might find a chest or something fun waiting for you up there. That's it for the abilities, and while occasionally I do miss Stasis and Remote Bombs, these are some absolutely amazing abilities that all go into the game to make it such an amazing experience throughout the whole time. I know we just spent quite a while on something very specific to the game, the specific abilities. However, there's still some absolute morons out there who say that this game is just $70 DLC, and I'm trying to show them the differences. Talking to you right now. Unless you're smart, and then you don't have to listen to this, but please don't skip it. It's not flippin' $70 DLC. Who raised you? You had bad parents. That's what you had. The next thing I want to talk about is the story, and I'm just going to say this and only this. It's fantastic. People didn't love that Breath of the Wild didn't really have too strong of a story at the forefront, and for the record, I did enjoy the story, but that was a major complaint. So the team listened and crafted a fantastic story with emotion and stakes. It's exciting and with a darker and more mature tone, and it's a lot of fun. It also serves as a great catalyst to push you through the gameplay. More generally, the world here is stunning. It is a similar map to what we've seen with Breath of the Wild, but while that game was in ruins, what we see here is a world rebuilding itself with more fleshed out towns, NPCs, stables, side quests, and there's constantly things to do, like minigames. This is one of the best parts of the game because the world is vast and open, but it feels like a real living, breathing world. the NPCs feel like people trying to rebuild. Also, since this game is connected with Breath of the Wild, you're going to meet familiar faces, people that you remember talking to and remember side questing with in Breath of the Wild, and now they're back, and they remember you, and that feels really, really cool as well. Basically, everywhere you look in this game, there are things to do. Of course, being as the same engine of Breath of the Wild, it's going to look and feel pretty similar, but that's not a problem. I loved Breath of the Wild, and Tears of the Kingdom essentially perfected the open world Zelda formula. This makes me so excited to see where the franchise will go in the future as well. Okay, now for the negative. The game doesn't run perfectly. There are some stutters and slowdowns occasionally, but I haven't noticed almost any pop-in, which I do love, and which I will say is pretty impressive, seeing as there's no load screen between the Sky Islands and Hyrule below. The performance running slower and occasionally stuttering is unfortunate, and it really shows that we do need a new Nintendo console sooner rather than later. Is that going to be a Switch Pro? No, it's not. Let's stop talking about it. But I could totally see another Nintendo Switch not coming out this year. Probably not even next year, but the year after that. And hopefully it's backwards compatible so we can play this game on a 4K system. Nintendo, please. But the performance for this game isn't really an issue because it's running on 10-year-old hardware, and the game itself is still so much fun. We have to understand that this isn't running on something like a PS5 or an Xbox Series X, where it's expected to run this well. Running sort of poorly on the Switch does make a little bit of sense. The Sky Islands themselves are something that's a huge part of the early game. Let me just say that I love the aesthetic up there. It's really fun and colorful, and the concepts serve as a great refresher on how to battle enemies, and the environmental puzzles that these areas throw at you is really, really fun. Whenever I feel overwhelmed in the base overworld of Hyrule, I constantly find myself getting up to the Sky Islands to enjoy some scenery and hunt for some random, but always very helpful treasure. Seriously, you need to open every single treasure chest on the Sky Islands because there is some gold there. There's some amazing stuff. The enemies of Constrants essentially replace the Guardians, and I feel that they are a great substitute. They are not much harder or anything, but they are super cool because remember that fuse ability that we talked about earlier? Well, these guys have it too, and they can fuse a boulder to their shield and start bashing you with it, and that's when it gets real tricky. It's a great time, all things considered, and I think they're a really fun introductory enemy. Something that a lot of people have been saying about this game is that it can totally be overwhelming for someone who didn't play Breath of the Wild previously, and as much as people in the comments are going to flip out about how people haven't played every single game in existence, let's remember that every gamer, even you at some point, started with a single game, whether that be your first game ever or your first Zelda game. Mine personally was Skyward Sword. However, I would have to agree that for someone who hasn't played Breath of the Wild and is seeing all the hype surrounding Tears of the Kingdom, trying to jump in and get into it might be a little bit confusing. I think it's totally doable, but it will take some getting used to. However, I don't really think it is much harder than Breath of the Wild, because truly in Tears of the Kingdom, you don't have to make these crazy contraptions that you're seeing online. That's an optional thing. If you want to go through the whole campaign, just story to story, main quest to main quest, not doing side quests, not messing around too much with Ultra Hand and Fuse and all that, you don't have to, and you can still get through the game pretty alright. I think similar to any game, it's really just important that the person playing is having a good time, and I think that's very possible with this game, even if it is your first Zelda. And honestly, that's just my thoughts, but I can also totally see the side of it that it can be a bit too much, because I will admit the controls are fairly complex. But I mean, if you're having a hard time here, I highly advise you stay far, far away from Xenoblade. Sorry, OJ. But anyways, this game is truly something special. To be honest, before we saw a gameplay trailer for it, I wasn't even that excited. I thought, yeah, it'll be cool, but I didn't realize how addicting and fun it really was going to be. Going through the main quest in this game is a blast. It has an amazing story that accompanies the whole thing, and it's all tied up with some very inventive gameplay. This truly is the perfect package. This is a $70 Switch game that you can easily get over 100 hours of fun in. It's probably the best game of the last decade, of course behind Tropical Freeze, because, I mean, 2023 to 2013 still counts in there. But it sure is really, really fun. So I do give Tears of the Kingdom a solid 9.9 out of 10. No game is perfect, and the only thing holding it back for me is the hardware. But personally, that's just what I think of the game. If you think something totally different, let me know down in the comments below. Subscribe, like the video, and I'll see you in this one where I rank all the Zelda games. People were up in arms about where I put some of these. Will you be? I don't know.